Just some guy talking here, and I have done in the past a couple videos about fear, where I dwelt mainly on what I do to manage my own fear, to keep it from playing an outsized role in my life. And the reason why I talk and think a lot about fear is because it's important. We all have them, and it has impact on all of our lives. And so I'm going to talk about fear again, only this time I'm going to approach it from a different perspective. And that is, what do we do with other people's fear? In other words, when people come to us and they're afraid, how do we deal with that? I'll tell you how I tend to deal with it, and maybe this might sound familiar to you. I tend to rely heavily on the phrase or versions of this question, what are you afraid of? And why do I ask that question? I ask it as a challenge to hopefully push them through their fear, to motivate them to push through to the other side and just do this thing that they might be legitimately terrified of, or just deal with this fear that is consuming them right now and just get through it. Or I ask the question, what are you afraid of, as an invitation for you to line up your fears for me to dismantle with logic. And that is by far my favorite way to deal with people's fears. And it is wrong. The more I think about it, the more wrong it feels, the more wrong it obviously is. And this is why it's wrong, is because no matter how good my logic is, and it can be pretty good sometimes, their fear is still going to be there. Most fear does not respond to logic, it is an emotion. And by me laying out a very eloquent, fact based, compelling argument about why they should not have this fear, the only thing that I'm potentially accomplishing is giving them a reason to be embarrassed that they still have this fear after I've laid out the case against it so convincingly. And that's not a compassionate way to help somebody through their fear. 99.9% of the time, the person who you challenge or invite to, give you the opportunity to ridicule their fears, really is how it comes across to them sometimes. 99.9% of the time, that person walks away from there feeling worse because they still have the fear, and now they have all these reasons why they shouldn't have it, and they can't connect the two to get through it. So what's the better way? I've been asking myself this a lot. The better way is for us to use the question differently. Use it honestly. When I say, what are you afraid of? It functions very much like, hey, how are you doing? You don't want to hear the real thing. You want to hear somebody say, I'm fine. How are you? And if they tell you that they're not fine, you're like, oh, crap. Now I got to deal with this. We do the same thing with that question. If you ask it honestly, then you should expect and encourage that person to honestly share their fears. What are you afraid of? Tell me about your fears. Not so that I can destroy them or logic my way through them, but so that I can understand you and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And I might not be any more able to fix that person's fear after hearing them explain it than I would have been before that. But I'll tell you for sure that the person who is feeling fear will feel much better about you just wanting to know why it is they're afraid than they would if you just told them why they shouldn't be. See, we think about fear as a burning building that we need to drag people out of. It, for a lot of us, kicks in our savior complex, right? So I hear somebody afraid and I think to myself, I can fix this. And then I go about doing everything that I can to do just that, to fix their fear. And that's not really something that I can do. It's something that I feel like I should be able to do. Logically, in my mind, it feels like something that should work, but it's not something that I have generally been able to do for people effectively. So I need to just give that up because it doesn't work and it might do more harm than good. What I need to think about, the way that I need to think about fear is as a dark room that that person is in and they need company. So I need to go into that fear with them. I need to understand that fear with them so that I can sit with them. And that might be the only help that I can get, but it also might be the only help that that person needs to manage their fear themselves, to work through this fear themselves. So rather than thinking to myself, I got this, I'm trying to think to myself, I'm here with this. I'm here with you. I'm going to experience this with you. And I'm going to experience it as somebody who does not have this fear personally. So I can be here and be calm and be a stabilizing force, maybe, but at the very least, I'm going to be here so that you're not alone in what you're afraid of. Now, I've had a couple experiences where people have done this for me in a slightly different context. One of my favorite stories happened when my grandmother died, and I was rushing to get to Puerto Rico for her funeral. And it was the first person in my life that I had lost who was close to me. And one of my friends called me up. I was in college. He called me up from a blue phone outside and said, hey, I heard that, things are really hard, can I help? And I said, no, I don't want to talk. I don't want, I'm just, I was really in a bad spot. And he said, I'm coming up and I'm going to sit in your room, whether you want me there or not. And we don't have to talk. I just want to be there. And that's what he did. He came up to my room, he sat there, and he didn't say a word. He just sat in a chair while I packed my bags, um, and didn't move, didn't say anything, didn't try to comfort me or touch me or anything, but he was there. I knew that if I fell apart, he would be there. And it, to this day, is one of the most amazing ways that anybody has ever helped me with grief. And fear is very similar. If we sit with people in it, we don't have to do a whole lot more than that. And I know for some of us like me who want to be the problem solver, who maybe feel like they want to save somebody in a hard situation, it's really hard to accept that. We feel like we should be doing more. We feel like we could be doing more, and that we have the ability to do more. So why not try? But it's not always the best move. So I'm not sure that I'm making the point that I'm trying to make very well, but I guess what I'm trying to drive at is that we need to adjust our perspective of other people's fears so that we can help better. This whole idea of pushing somebody towards their fear, it's not really great. It's the same thing as some parent grabbing their kid and tossing them into the swimming pool so that they learn how to swim. It's not helpful. It's hurtful. And when it comes down to it, if there's somebody who you care about, who is in fear, who is experiencing fear, who lives with fear daily, what they need is a companion. They've probably thought of a bunch of different ways. They've probably gone to people who are pros to try to help them with the fear to get rid of it. It's not going to go away. They're going to have to carry this. They're going to have to go through it. And in the moments that you can, you need to be there with them, so that they don't feel alone, so that that fear at least is spread out a little bit. It doesn't feel like it's just pushing on them by themselves. I don't know if I made my point, man. I've been thinking about this video for like a month. And that's what's hard about these things, is that I think, about something. I understand it in my mind. It's hard for me to articulate. So I hope that this is helpful. And I don't know if I'm going to come back around to it. I'm sure I will, because fear is just everywhere, right? But I'm just some guy talking, and I will talk.